Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my family meet my daughter after all of them dropped out my wedding upon finding out my wife was pregnant? I come from a conservative Christian family. All my family members were/are involved in the church and have church-based jobs. When they met my wife, they loved her and embraced her as their own. We dated for 2 years and discovered she was pregnant after we got engaged. Invitations were already given at the time, and we decided to still have the wedding on date when my wife was 5 months in. My family were furious when they found out my wife was pregnant. They asked if we even still considered having a wedding. I said why not, but they were very upset, especially Mom and Dad, who said they've always been known for their decency and good Christian values, and weren't willing to let this stain their reputation, as in my wife and I getting married while pregnant. They officially dropped out and refused to negotiate, saying it was done, and I have only myself to blame for this outcome, and should move the wedding out of town. I was hurt. I tried to change their minds and checked with other members, but my brother said he had no intentions to look like a joke in front of his fellow church members and dropped out. My aunt pretended to be sick and said she may not be able to make it. She's 100% healthy. My cousin said he had a business trip and stopped his wife and kids from attending. And my uncle cussed me out, torn the invitation, and kicked me out. I felt terrible with no family members of my own to support me and share my joy at my wedding. I even broke down crying after the ceremony. I haven't spoken to them for months, and then I got busy with my 4-week-old daughter. My cousin reached out to hand me gifts and well wishes for the birth of my daughter, sent from my family. I returned everything. He sat down with me on behalf of the family, saying I shouldn't have returned the gifts that were from my family, who want to see and hopefully be involved in my daughter's life. He said, Mom's longing to meet her grandbaby, and everyone else is waiting to visit soon to celebrate my daughter's life. I asked him this question. I said, wasn't my daughter the reason why the entire lot of them abandoned my wedding? He just stared grudgingly as I went on about how they treated my daughter as something to be ashamed of and hide. My daughter at some point will ask about the wedding, and I have no intentions on lying to her. He replied saying he guaranteed I got it all wrong, and no matter what goes down between us, I can never deny that my daughter is their granddaughter/niece/ etc., and they're her family. He asked that I arranged for them to visit, but I refused. He kept pressing the idea, but I shut him down. My wife says I should let them come, but I still refused. Now the top comments. Not the a-hole. Let your family know that like a good Christian, you are willing to forgive, but they have sinned against you and God. Jesus' highest teaching after loving God is to love everyone as he loves us, including sinners, non-believers, and enemies. Their actions toward you were not about love, but ego and pride. They were more worried about what others might think than simply loving you and your family. Jesus also taught not to judge others. That is the whole point of let he who has no sin cast the first stone. They certainly cast that stone. Let them know that you feel that you have done your work to be good with God and have nothing to apologize to them for. Have they? Until they come to you with a genuine apology that admits exactly how they wronged you and sinned against you and your wife, keep them away. Indeed, despite what they've done, I haven't changed my views about my religion as a Christian myself. I know that it was more about their reputation and name than anything else, really. Not the a-hole. Keep them away from your daughter. You're right, they're toxic. My friend has a similar thing happen, but let the family back into his life. He found out years later that the family would pull his daughter aside from when she was about 4 up until she was about 12 or 13 to tell her she was a bastard and a sinner. Awful stuff. He immediately cut off his family again when he found out, but it really fucked his daughter up for a while until he got her therapy. I personally think that they reap what they sow. Plain and simple. They ditched you as a family because of your daughter. Now you need to protect her from them. But if they pull this on her, what if she does something they don't like, or they consider a stain on their reputation? No, they do not deserve to meet her. They ended that relationship themselves, not you. Good riddance to bad rubbish. I have in-laws who use religion to try to control and shame and judge me. I've walked away and am so much happier not being around any of them. So, I know where you're coming from. Next story. Am I the a-hole for sending the police to my daughter's place? I'm a mother of two, 13 male and 22 female. My daughter lives in a rental apartment with her boyfriend. Personally, I'm not too fond of him due to behavioral issues. He's the kind of guy who speaks insensitively, especially about my disabled husband. He has nothing against him, but he keeps making backhanded comments about him constantly. And for that, I limit his visits to my house since I have a younger son, and it's not acceptable to speak about his dad this way. Only my older daughter visits for the time being, but she complains about me being too harsh to her boyfriend. One day, she brought up my husband's pickup truck that's been sitting in the garage since my husband got injured/disabled, and asked if I was willing to give it to her and her boyfriend to fix and use. I declined since the owner is pretty much alive and well and he gets the final say on what to do with it. My husband loves this truck and holds it dear to his heart, so I see it as a precious object. My daughter kept bringing it up, saying her dad can't drive anymore, so I should let her and the boyfriend have it. I sternly told her to stop talking about it. Thursday, I was out shopping when my son called, saying his sister's boyfriend came over and towed the truck and left with it. I was furious. I called my daughter, but she didn't answer. I sent a voicemail saying I'd call the police if they didn't return the truck, but nothing. I waited for a few hours, then called the police and had them sent to my daughter's place to retrieve the truck. Her boyfriend was arrested in the process. My daughter called crying, saying I should tell the police to let him go, as she gave him the key to our house to take the truck, but I denied giving permission to take it. She came begging me to go to the police station and get her boyfriend out, but I refused and said I won't drop it after he broke in and stole the truck, and her excuse didn't hold up since she wasn't a resident of the house to give him permission to enter, let alone take the truck. Her boyfriend's mom threatened me saying her nephew is a cop and will get him out no problem, but I ignored. My daughter kept yelling at my husband when he was in bed, telling me to say something. That's when I told her to leave. My family got involved, saying I should let her boyfriend get out, or I'll lose my daughter and get her to hate me. But I refused, otherwise he'd do it again. I'm not sure if I'm morally doing the right thing, since that's my daughter's boyfriend and she cares about him. Now the top comments. Not the a-hole. She knew the answer and sent him anyway. This is all on her. I would change all the locks and not give her a key. This. You now know that your daughter and her boyfriend feel entitled to anything of yours and your husband's that they want. I mean, if they'll steal a truck, something that has an actual title document, I can't imagine what they wouldn't help themselves to. Change the locks and make sure they only have access to your house when you guys are home. And I'm sorry to say this, since it seems like you want to put most of the blame on the boyfriend, but your daughter created this situation. She gave the BF the house key so he could take the truck after you said no. It's not just the boyfriend who can't be trusted, not the a-hole. This right here is key. OP, your daughter is responsible here. She knew the answer was no. She gave him the key. She decided they would just take it anyway, not the a-hole. You clearly told her no multiple times. She and her boyfriend went behind your back and stole your husband's truck when you weren't home. The entitlement there is absolutely astounding. And then they push that further by demanding you to drop the issue? She allowed her boyfriend to steal from her disabled father. Absolutely not the a-hole. He needs a reality check. He committed a crime and got arrested for it. That's entirely his responsibility, and you aren't obligated to absolve him of that simply because she loves him. And she needs a reality check too, if she thinks any of this is okay. Next story. Am I the a-hole for defending my son and stepdaughter dating? I know the title sounds weird, but please read on. So, my son, 27 male, and stepdaughter, 26 female, recently revealed to me and my wife that they have been dating secretly all this time, and that they're engaged and that they plan on getting married and starting a family. They also said that they did not tell us sooner because They were afraid of how I would react. My son and stepdaughter met when my son was 16 and she was 15. To be honest, something like this happening was a concern for me, because they were both teenagers and wouldn't see each other as siblings. But they got along well, so I forgot about it. They said they started dating a few months after they met and have continued till now. I also know that both of them went to colleges in two cities very far from each other, so they somehow still kept the relationship alive. When they were in college, they would only meet whenever they came back for the holidays. And I remember that they both were more happy to see each other than us. All of this explains it. They would also go out together, shopping, or just to see the city alone. There were other instances which made a lot more sense now. They both live in a different city. My wife and I thought they lived separately, but they actually have been living together for 2 years now. I told them that I support them and that I understand why they did not tell us, and that I am happy for them as long as they are happy. My wife, on the other hand, was a different story. She went completely ballistic. She started screaming that it's disgusting and that they're siblings and this is incest. My stepdaughter started crying and my son just took her by the hand and left our home. Now my wife wants me to somehow convince them to break up and date other people. All I said was, they met when they were 16 and 15. They don't see each other as siblings. If we oppose to this, they will hate us forever, and I'm sure that they would rather stop talking to us forever than break up. Even I am a little uncomfortable by this, but I understand, and there really isn't much I can do. I love my son and stepdaughter, and I know they would disown us if we opposed to this. My wife is angry now and hasn't really talked to me ever since this happened. Am I the a-hole? Now the top comment. Not the a-hole. They met in high school. Their relationship has stood the test of time and odds. There is literally nothing weird about it. They aren't siblings. They are two people whose parents decided to get together when they were almost legal adults. Your wife is insane. Not the a-hole. I see why you'd be a little uncomfortable, but as you mentioned, they were practically adults when you and your wife introduced them. I think you're doing the right thing by preserving your relationship with your children, despite your feelings about the situation. I hope your wife comes around. Possibly a few rounds of family therapy would come in handy. Not the a-hole. This is not incest. They are not blood relations. They were not truly raised as siblings. They met in their mid-teens, only a couple of years before they went away to separate colleges. Your wife is overreacting. Support your son and stepdaughter. Their relationship is a decade old. Your wife is dreaming if she thinks you can influence it without destroying your relationship with them. And they're adults now. No one has the right to influence the life choices of another adult like this. Parents or step-parent neither. Accept it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my mom about my savings? My 16 female mom is a single mom of 6, including me. They go from 2 to 14. The 3 oldest, 12, 14, and me, try to help her as much as we can since she has 2 jobs. My dad and I get along just fine. He and my grannies give me an amount of money per month, $300 since I turned 13. I usually took $100 for my things. I give her $100 for bills, and I return $100 to my dad to have an emergency fund, since one of my brothers and I have asthma, and I want to make sure that I have money all the time. My mom doesn't know about my emergency fund and thinks that I only get $200 a month. She respects my income most of the time, but with 6 kids and a big house, she smooches all of hers pretty quickly. So when my siblings want something like pizza, clothes, or some fun money, or things she asks to share, I do it because I love my siblings, but sometimes I think it's unfair, since I already give her $100. 2 days ago, one of my brothers, 9, broke his ankle while playing outside, and we had to take him to the hospital. When my mom tried to pay, they declined her card, and she freaked out. I called my dad and asked him to drop some of my emergency money for the bill and the medicine. He did, and we came home. When we were alone in the kitchen, she asked me for the money, and I told her that I had some aside, since my grandpa recommended me to have an emergency fund because things can happen all the time, and it was formative for me. She asked how much I have saved, and I told her that right now I have like 2K maybe. She started to berate me, saying that I shouldn't hide money from my family, and told me to give it as soon as possible to buy something we needed. This is why I might be the a-hole. I told her no, since the money was for emergencies such as my brothers and that the things we needed aren't. She says that my brothers, twins, 2 and 4, need some shoes and pants and that she also needs a new laptop for work. But that's not an emergency, and even if it were, it's her job to buy those things. I told her that that was the reason I never said anything about the fund. She called me an ungrateful brat for not helping her more and sent me to my room. She said that I better give her the money by the end of the month, but I don't know if I should. Edit. To clarify, my siblings and I don't share the same dad. He's only my father. Now the top comments. Not the a-hole. You were smart to have emergency savings, and you are smart to keep it elsewhere. It is indeed your mom's responsibility to take care of her children, not yours, especially as a 16-year-old. Keep your savings for emergencies and don't give in to her pressure to give it to her. If you don't give it to her at the end of the month, what is she going to do? Kick you out? I'm sure your dad or grandparents would let you stay with them. If you are the oldest of 6 at age 16, does your mom receive child support from your dad? My dad isn't my sibling's father. There's my dad, 16, 12 and 14 dad, 9 dad, and the twin dad, 2. She only receives child support from mine and 12/14's dad, because she doesn't know who are the last 2. Okay, so just to clarify, your dad pays your mom child support for you and the $300 they give to you is separate from that, right? Your mom is basically asking you to pay child support for her other kids. It's absolutely inexcusable. You're just a kid, and the fact that you paid the hospital bill for your little brother was extremely kind but unnecessary. I cannot believe that your generosity is being met with demands for more, but you are not the a-hole to not give in. Not the a-hole. Get your dad involved in this as soon as possible. You were wise to entrust the money to him. Not the a-hole. If your mom wouldn't have the guts to ask your dad for the money, she shouldn't be asking you for it. You get that money from your dad, and it's for a specific purpose. Plus, it sounds like you already do pass on a lot of the money you receive, which is very caring of you. Okay, next story. Am I the a-hole for restricting my husband access to our bank account? My husband and I are in our late 20s, 27 and 28. We've been together for 5 years and married for 2. A couple months ago, he began playing a phone game called Marvel Contest of Champions, and in under a month, he managed to spend almost $60K. $58K isn't a small amount to us. Last year, our combined income was $219K, $67K for me, and $152K for him, although he should be making more soon. After seeing our bank statement, I sat him down and said that this type of thing can't happen, and that for the sake of our financial future, we'd have to really watch his spendings, and it would need to be controlled for the foreseeable future. Well, he made a Reddit post, and someone said I could get more replies here, since he tried to use one saying I should cut him some slack as an "I told you so." And after showing him the replies that contrasted the one he showed me, he basically said I was an a-hole. I did contact Apple and got a lot of it refunded, $53.7K to be exact. Just the 2 huge bursts of purchases. The others littered throughout the month, and the ones exceeding the 60-day period weren't refunded. I couldn't come up with a plausible explanation to get them refunded without looking too suspicious. We had separate accounts, but I decided I needed all our money in one place to keep an eye on it, and him, from now on. So, am I the a-hole for cutting him off? Now the top comments. Not the a-hole. Anyone that would drop $58K on a phone game cannot be trusted with the family bank account. $58K in a month. That's more than some people earn in a year. He spent $58K on in-app purchases for a stupid phone game? There's bigger problems at play. I'd suggest an ultimatum for therapy on gambler's addiction. I think you did the right thing, but the way might have been harsh. I'd suggest a temporary probation of funds for X many months, until he could have that self-control. And if truly a gambler's addiction, he shouldn't be using gaming apps with in-app purchases like that. I still cannot comprehend how someone spends that much on a game with zero return. Hell, gambling would have at least possibly done something for you guys. I'm absolutely flabbergasted that someone could spend so much on a video game. Like, can you imagine the help you could bring someone's life if you donated that money instead? Ridiculous. I spent a lot of money on video games, but this is the down payment for a house or a car in full, right?